Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 6th chapter. Jesus said, "But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you. And if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put in your lap. The measure you give will be the measure you get back. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Grace, mercy, and peace be with you from God our Father, from the Son, and from the Holy Spirit. Amen. That was my very first semester in college. And I was sitting in the class, a class that was required, Philosophy 101. I didn't know a lot about philosophy, so there was a lot of opportunity to learn. Except, we had one guy in the class that sat directly behind me, and he and the prof would argue about all kinds of philosophical concepts that none of us in the class knew about. And that was the whole semester, going back and forth between these two. And I don't know that very many of us learned much of anything other than what we read in the book. Well, later on, we were both this guy that was sitting behind me and myself were vying for the affections of the same girl. Now, oh man, you talk about wanting to strike another on the cheek. I had animosity towards him from class, and now we have this competition going. And, like I said, talk about wanting to strike somebody. I felt it. Now, I never, ever would have acted on it. I never started a fight in my life. Meanwhile, this co-ed was friends with the woman who became my wife. And she set us up on a double date to their sorority formal. It didn't take long for this guy, Dave is his name, and for him and I to become good friends. Something for which I give him most of the credit. Still, I had to be open to it. And it was God then. Conflict turned into friendship. We live in a time rife with conflict. Some even revel in such division and animosity, doing what they can to stir it up. On Quora was a place to ask questions, and this question was posted, and I've changed the words a little bit. How do you tick off a liberal? Now, I asked in return, are you serious? Is that your life ambition? Are you saying you prefer to make enemies than friends? You would rather fight than learn? What you're saying is you're willing to engage in destructive behavior just so you can create even more acrimony in our nation. That's not the kind of life I find worth living. And then I genuinely wished him well. I said, I sincerely hope you find a healthier purpose for your life. I do pray he or she seeks understanding over conflict and love over hatred. I don't know if I'll ever know whether that person did or not. But certainly making war is a whole lot easier than making peace. Likewise, controversy is so much easier than concord. It doesn't take much intellect or ingenuity to inject divisiveness into relationships and society. We have people today who make millions just being contrarians, to create anger and division in our nation. We listen to these people who offer nothing constructive nor any positive solutions. They exist simply to stir up anger. We find ourselves doing many of the same things. Our sinful nature at times delights in participating or creating brokenness and resentment, not just in society, but in personal relationships. Gossip is one way we do that. Let me ask you this. Does such chatter build up the person who is the subject of the conversation? Of course not. Where would the fun be in that, right? This is our fallen nature. Into this reality, we hear another way to live, as Jesus continues with what we call the Sermon on the Plain. You may have heard last week that there are the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, where Jesus goes up on a mountain and starts preaching. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus comes down to a level place, and so we call that the Sermon on the Plain. They're similar, but by far not the same. Luke records a raw proclamation that's rather harsh compared to the Sermon on the Mount. Here, Jesus expands his radically different worldview. It's more astonishing than anything anyone could imagine. As he speaks, it makes our head spin and throws us off balance, to say the very least. There are even people who don't like Jesus' words here. Nevertheless, Jesus lays out a kingdom ethic that flies in the face of one of our world's expectations, or every one of our world's expectations. It's important to know. Jesus' words here in our gospel text for today is where both Gandhi and Martin Luther King discovered the awesome power of love to effect change. From Jesus, they learned that nonviolent resistance is an act of love, and only love can genuinely transform a human heart. So, Jesus teaches here, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other as well. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Now, perhaps in the back of your mind, you're thinking, come on, Jesus, that's a pie-in-the-sky notion. It's a nice theory, but it can't work in the real world. It's dog-eat-dog out there. In our world, if someone strikes you on the cheek, you better retaliate. If they hit you once, you hit them twice and twice as hard. You do that or they won't respect you. That's the way of the world. Martin Luther King explained this text and expanded on Jesus' love in his preaching here. He said, this love is not some sentimental emotion that Jesus is talking about. It's nonsense to urge people who love to love their oppressors in an affectionate sense. By love, Jesus means to have goodwill toward another. Agape love is what this is, goodwill towards the one who oppresses you. Agape is nothing sentimental or affectionate. At its heart, Jesus wants us to seek the best outcome for the other, seeking nothing in return. Nevertheless, it still seems Jesus is telling us to be a doormat. Are we to be the victim? It kind of sounds like it. Nevertheless, Jesus, what do you think here? Are we to be the victim? What do you think? Somebody slaps you on the face, you're going to turn the other cheek? Why would Jesus suggest that? It is an act of resistance. Usually when somebody struck another person, it was a person of a lower station. And they would use the back of the hand to strike that person. If you turn your cheek the other way while their hand is out here, they have to use the open part of their hand, the palm of their hand. That's something that you might do between equals. What you're saying is, if you're going to do this, you're going to treat me as your equal. If someone sues you for your coat or your cloak, he says, give them your shirt also. To do that, you're going to be nearly naked. Well, a lot of times in our society, we are ashamed if we are naked, but shame in that society was on the one who caused the nakedness, not the naked one. And so this too is powerful resistance. From Jesus came the nonviolent resistance of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. To understand Martin Luther King Jr., you must realize that God has always desired true justice to be available to all people without exception. Speaking for God, Amos the prophet tells the people that God has no real interest in their festivals or offerings, their sacrifices and songs. All that God really wants is justice. Listen to Amos again. Let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. The prophet Micah says much the same thing, as he asserts that God does not care about their sacrifices, regardless how much it is. You'll hear there in Micah that even if you offer rivers of oil, God doesn't care about that. What concerns God, Micah tells us, is justice. He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. God doesn't need our justice. God knows that our neighbor does. As to the poor, the outcast, the lonely, and the despised. King clearly understood that African Americans overwhelmingly needed justice, but that white society was indifferent at best. While many around him advocated violence to draw attention to the cause of equality, King knew that violence did not and could not change hearts. With this Christian ethic of nonviolent resistance, King wrote and preached. At the center of nonviolence stands the principle of love. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Returning violence or violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The chain reaction of evil, he goes on to say, of hate begetting hate. Wars producing more wars must be broken, or we shall be plunged into the dark abyss of annihilation. Only an ethic of love can change this. Finally, nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon, which cuts without wounding. and enables the person who wields it. It is a sword that heals. This is just what Jesus is talking about here. Finally, Jesus sums up that which he is teaching. Be merciful as your Father is merciful. Jesus is offering an invitation to the people to be people of mercy. Essential to mercy is not to judge or to condemn. When we do, we too be held to the same standard. Instead, forgive and receive the same. That's what this last verse in the gospel stresses. There's another translation I came across that final verse that I think is a lot clearer than the one we have here. For the measure you use with others will be the measure of which return is made to you. What is clear is that in Christ, God's vision of a new heaven and a new earth is laid before us. This is the kind of world that God wants for all humanity. Now, by our own efforts, we cannot be the creator of this creation, but by love, we get to contribute to its coming. Our love for our enemy, our forgiveness for those who have harmed us is never perfect, but they do make a difference. And we know any love we have, any forgiveness we offer is possible because God first loved us.